All personnel accounted for? Preparations complete. This has been our home for the last decade. Today, we go in search of a new one. Our universe is full of surprises. Let's go face them together.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from ProductionCrate, back with another quick Unreal video for you guys. The last video I did is when I brought all these cool sci-fi corridors into Unreal and I optimized them, gave them cool collision layers and all that stuff, but there arose such an uproar in the comments and the Discord that I felt like I had to respond. You guys just want to learn how to render. So to help you guys learn, I'm just going to share this scene with you, and Future Mike's going to jump in right now and show you where you can download that. Hey everybody, it's Future Mike here. So just go here to where you download the corridors, and if you roll over this little button right here, you'll see a new download option. Go ahead and click that, and that's the entire Unreal scene. Everything I showed you guys is there. If you have Unreal 5 installed, you should just be able to open up this project if you drop it in your library. All right, enjoy. So let me give you guys a quick tour of this scene and get you guys comfortable, and then we'll start rendering. So actually, when you first open it, probably going to be this level right here. You're going to see this weird kind of orangey place, and you'll see there's our cool sci-fi guy right there. So to get to those corridors, what you want to do is go File, Open Level, and if it doesn't take you straight to this folder, just go to Third Person BP, Maps, Hallways Promo right there. Open that up. Nice. So this should be what you see. And if I just kind of like zoom out, now I'm outside the level, just give you guys a quick tour. By the way, all these models are up on RenderCrate. I'm using only RenderCrate assets in this. You can see there's a couple little branching pathways through here. There's a long open corridor with a lot of windows, some cool background outside stuff, and then we have kind of the main focal point of the level, which is this awesome spaceship. Over here we've got a little astronaut side of this spaceship. Over here we got some other astronauts repairing the big spaceship. If you want to place your own astronauts around the scene and make your own little vignette, here's how you do that. Control Space will take you into the content browser, and there's a couple of PCrate assets in here. We've got the astronaut folder with a few different animations. So if I want to create a scene where this guy's kind of working on the floor here, I can do that. Just drag and drop that in and he'll animate. Now notice up here there's a play button with the little tank tracks, little gears. That's how you simulate. So if I press play, all of your FBXs will start animating. So let's actually get down to rendering. That's what you guys came here to learn. So we need to do a couple things. We need to create a level sequence, which is basically just a timeline that you can put stuff on, anything you want to be animated. We need to open up the render queue and create a batch render. Now I've actually created a few sequences for you guys already, so you can dissect them and see how I did it. If you want to navigate to those and check those out, go ahead and open up your content browser, jump over into the RenderCrate folder. Down here at the bottom, we have shot 1 through 6. This is just me messing around with the camera, trying to come up with some cool angles. And if you open these up, you can see what I did, and then I'll show you how to make your own. So if I double click on shot 1, it'll look like nothing happened. You can see this timeline opens up. It's a window called the sequencer right here. And I can see that these little thumbnails show me there's an animation happening. If I press play, it doesn't really do anything. So every time I create the sequence, there's actually a different camera that's being controlled inside the sequence other than this viewport camera. So if we want to see that camera, we need to click here where it says Cine Camera Actor. And you can see this little corner window pops up. And if I scrub, I can see, okay, now my movie's playing in the corner. Now, if I want it to full screen in the viewport, what I do is I click this little camera icon right here. This says Lock Cine Camera Actor to the selected viewport. And now the viewport is that camera. And if I scrub through, I can see that it's animating, which is awesome. Now we've got some camera motion, but we've also got focus distance is changing. So you can see that right here, the foreground is in focus, this blue bar. And as I scrub forward, now the engine is in focus out in space, which is pretty cool to see. Let's check out one more. Now you can see that again, when I open up a new shot, it doesn't attach to the camera. So every time I do that, I have to click here so that it attaches to the current viewport. Now notice here, this guy's animating. If I press stop and I'm not simulating, then your FBXs and all your characters, they won't actually move. So they won't actually move. You have to actually press simulate or play to see it. Notice every time I click simulate or stop, it jumps out of my camera. So now when I scrub, the camera stops moving. So you always have to make sure that you're locked to the cinematic camera. Now we have this shot where the guy is animating, he's flipping switches and kind of waving at the camera, and then the camera moves up and the background comes into focus. All right, so how do we make our own sequence? Well, it's pretty easy. It's actually really easy. I'm gonna go over here to cinematics, add level sequence, and I'm gonna call this shot 7. You can call it whatever you want. And I've been saving them in my RenderCrate folder. Again, you could save them wherever you want. If it doesn't immediately jump over to that shot, just go ahead and open up your content browser and double click on shot 7. And there it is. So right now there's nothing in the shot. So I need to attach that camera, the cinematic camera, into my sequence. So that's this little button right here, create new camera, and set it to the current camera cut. There we go, there's our Cine Camera Actor. Now, if you're not sure if you're actually inside the camera viewing it, then what you need to do is roll over this button and see how it says unlock Cine Camera Actor from viewport. That means you're inside of it. And if I move around, I'm actually moving my render camera around. Now, if I click off of it and I move out of the way, you can see that it says lock Cine Camera Actor to viewport. That means we're not inside of it. So that's how you can tell. So now that we're in the camera, let's go back inside and just kind of find a cool shot. I think what I want to do is kind of start here on the ceiling and kind of pan down and look at the engine. So I'm going to start by aligning my first shot, and let me show you guys how to adjust some of the camera settings just like you would in real life. So I've got my Cine Camera Actor selected. Over here in the details panel, we can change the film back, which is the sensor size. You can try messing around with these and getting a different look. So if I go to 16:9 DSLR, it's kind of like having a full frame camera. Under lens settings, I have it set to universal zoom, which is basically just, you can have any lens you want. There's some presets here though. If you have a favorite lens like 85mm prime f1.8, there you go. Now you have that effect. I'm gonna go back to universal zoom. If I scroll down, we have the current focal length, which is how far you're zoomed in. So right now I'm at 85mm. I can go down to 35mm, get that familiar look. If I want like a super telephoto lens, I can go to like 300mm. And now I'm really zoomed in. I'm gonna probably go happy medium, like maybe 50mm lens is pretty cool. We can also change the aperture. So if you know anything about cameras, the smaller the number you type in here, the shallower your depth of field is gonna be. So if I go down to like 1.4, I can see that my foreground here is really out of focus. The background's really sharp. If I go to a higher number, like let's say f16, now everything's pretty much in focus. So that's how you can kind of control the look you want. Let's go with a really shallow depth of field. So I'm gonna do 1.2, okay? And let's set up my first shot. I think I wanna look up. Maybe I'll actually turn this way because I like this red light. I think it's kind of cool to get that lens flare in there too. So that's my first shot. I'm gonna scrub here to the first frame of my animation, and I'm gonna scroll down to my transform, and I'm gonna keyframe it right there. If you want to keyframe the rotation and the position separately, you can open this up and you can keyframe rotation, location, and scale all separately. So I'm gonna scrub down to the end, which is frame 150 it looks like. And I think I'm gonna kind of move towards the window so it fills the screen, but I'll leave it in there as kind of a frame within a frame effect. And then I will keyframe transform again. So now I have these keyframes where the camera moves from over here over to here. Now let's actually keyframe the focus distance, because right now you can see my door's out of focus. It's not great. So let's just kind of like go right here, and here's how you can adjust the focus distance. There's a slider right here. I can lower this number to bring the focus closer to the camera. So I'm gonna bring it until this window frame is in focus. Now the background's out of focus. If you have trouble kind of nailing your focus, here's a cool trick. If you go over here into your camera settings and open up focus settings, turn on this little checkbox that says draw debug focus, you get this cool like purple square. Now when I increase or decrease my focus, this shape kind of goes out into space and shows you where the camera is actually focusing. So let's actually go back to the beginning of our animation, and I'm going to bring the focus closer to the camera until it's kind of focusing there on that red light. And I'm going to add a keyframe right here, this little plus sign, to my manual focus distance. And you can actually see, if you leave that on, you can see where it's focusing. So right here in the middle, let's actually bring it a little closer so it's maybe stays focused there on the window. And then here I want it to be focused on the engine. So I'm going to zoom it way out into space until it hits that engine right there. And we're good. I can actually turn off my purple square. Nice. Okay, let's press play and see what our animation looks like. Okay, very cool. All right, very cool, very cool. You'll notice a couple things. It's actually easing in and easing out, which means it's speeding up and slowing down. If you want sort of a constant speed, that's easy to change. I'm just gonna highlight all of my keyframes like this, and then right click and go linear. Now we're gonna get a constant speed. If you don't like that, you can right click and go back to cubic or auto. So how do we actually render this? Now if I go up to Window, Cinematics, Movie Render Queue, I'm gonna open that up. But quick note, if you don't see that, you probably need to load the plugin for it. It's not loaded by default in some versions of Unreal. If you don't see Movie Render Queue, go up to Settings, Plugins, search for Movie Render Queue, and you should see two plugins. We got the Movie Render Queue itself, and then also Movie Render Queue Additional Render Passes. And you want to click Enable, Enable, and it's going to ask you to restart the engine. Just go ahead and do that. Make sure you save first, just to be safe. The way you save is Control-Shift-S. That'll save everything. So now you should be able to go up to Window, Cinematics, Movie Render Queue. We get this blank render queue, and what you want to do is go plus render, and I'm going to add my latest shot, which is shot 7. Now notice I actually have a render preset here, and I've actually named it Fauché Render Presets. That's because I stole these settings from a really awesome YouTuber named William Fauché. He's kind of the Unreal render master right now. Everyone's kind of learning from him. I'm just going to go over the settings really quick, but if you want to go even more in depth into advanced Unreal rendering, this guy is the guy to check out. So I'm going to click here. Let me just show you the settings that he had us set up, and I've been getting good results with it. So notice here that I've changed my JPEG sequence to a PNG sequence. So what you can do is choose any sort of output you want. By default, it says JPEG sequence here. I just deleted that and made it a PNG sequence. And you could actually do multiple. Let's say you want to do sort of a low res JPEG for social media, but a higher res EXR sequence for actual production. You could do both at the same time, which is really cool. So I just chose PNG sequence. It's a little nicer than JPEG. I also added an anti-aliasing. Let me delete these so I can add them back and show you. So I go to settings, add anti-aliasing. I'm going to turn on override anti-aliasing. That means it's going to override the viewport settings. And under temporal sample count, I'm going to type in 64. That's going to take a while to render. If your computer is very slow or you just don't need that many samples, you can lower it to like 32. But what that does is every frame is going to render basically 64 times. Instead of just rendering frame 1, frame 2, it's going to render frame 1 and then 64 subframes in between. And what that's going to do is give you nice motion blur. Again, 64 is kind of high. It will render a lot slower, so just be aware of that. If you're going to do that, you're going to want to change a couple things about the engine to make that look better. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to add console variables. And these are just little snippets of code or a script that will change certain settings about the engine in the background that make that look better. Right here where it says console variables, I'm going to add a little plus. And these will actually be down in the description, so you can just copy and paste them the way I do. You don't have to type this. I'm just going to paste that right in there. Let me just read this. These are all kind of tongue twisters, but this is r.ambient-occlusion.denoiser.temporal accumulation, and it's set to 0. So we're gonna have 4 of these, and I'm not gonna read them all out. Just find them down in the description. Just copy and paste them like I'm doing. Now, if you don't already have that preset that I added, you can actually create your own preset here. If I go here, just click Save As Preset, name it whatever you want, and that way you only have to do that once. Now, you may notice my Render Local button, which is the actual render button to get it going, is grayed out. And that's because I'm currently simulating right here. So you want to press stop. That will allow you to render. I'm going to do one last quick check to see which folder it's going to save into, and then I'm going to let it render. So if you go to your output setting, this is the folder it's going to save to. That's the default one. I'm just going to let it save there. So I'm going to press render local. I'm going to show you what this window that's about to pop up is showing us, and then I'll stop the video and come back when it's done. So press render local, and notice this. The first frame is really weird. It's kind of like flying out in space and things were happening that weren't supposed to be happening. But notice this right here. I'm on frame 3 out of 150, but it's rendering subsamples. It's rendering multiple frames. So once again, it's rendering 64 frames for each frame, and it's kind of moving. That's how it simulates motion blur. All right, so my render finished. Let's do another really quick shot. I just want to show you a couple things. So what I want this to look like is a handheld camera that's looking at the pilot and he zooms in. So we're gonna have some camera shake and also just like a zoom and a focus will be kind of like delayed maybe. So let's go up to cinematics, add level sequence. I'll call this one shot 8. And we're gonna add it to the RenderCrate folder or wherever you want. And let's add a camera. You look here, it says unlock Cine Camera Actor from the viewport. So that means we're in the camera, we're good to go. So I think it's actually already pretty well zoomed in. Let's change a couple settings about this camera really quick. Again, I'm gonna go to 16:9 DSLR for the film back. That gives us a little bit bigger picture. And here's a quick little side note. Let's say you're gonna be doing like an ultra wide. You can actually increase the sensor width right here. You don't have to get too crazy with it, but you can play around with that stuff if you want to. My current focal length is 35. Let's start with 35, it seems pretty good. Also notice that I have this little icon, this little interface icon in the way. If you press G, that should go away. You can also press simulate. And remember, every time you simulate or press stop on the simulation, it jumps in or out of the camera. So I'm just gonna go to Cine Camera Actor. There's my guy doing his thing. Okay, that's a good place to start. Let's go ahead and keyframe the transform and the current focal length. And let's go down maybe to frame 45, something like that. I'm gonna keyframe it again, just because I want it to kind of sit there for a second. And then if I scrub down here, let's do like a really quick zoom. So I'm gonna change my current focal length to 85, maybe even more. Let's do like 200. So now we're really zoomed in on that pilot guy. And notice that this automatically keyframes. And since I moved the camera down, I'm gonna keyframe my transform again too. So we have that really cool zoom like that. Now let's keyframe the focus distance like like we did before. I'm gonna turn on my little pink square again, and let's have the focus distance be right where that pilot is, right there. Keyframe that, and you can see that it doesn't really change. It's always going to stay at that focus distance. So to kind of simulate how a camera actually works, I'm actually going to have it go out of focus. So starting right about here, and have it be out of focus, and then I'll have it come back into focus. So it looks like they're kind of struggling to get him nice and sharp. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Let's turn off the purple square, and I'll press rewind and play. Cool. Okay, let's add some camera shake in there. So I'm gonna open this up, and you can see right here, there's already something in the scene for you called camera shake. I'm gonna show you how I set it up, but if you wanna make your own, this is how you do it. I'm gonna right click an empty space here and go to Blueprint class, and then make sure that all classes are open here and search for camera shake. And where it says camera shake base, you're just gonna double click to create that. That's all I did, okay? So let's double click and open that up, and this is what it looks like. You don't have to really worry about this side of the window, just this side. And in fact, you can actually close the event graph if you want to. Close this all up so it seems really simple, and this is what we got. Now notice right here, everything's grayed out. I can't change anything. I'm gonna press stop on my simulation, and that allows me to change things. So if you don't see this here, Perlin noise camera shake pattern, go ahead and change it to that. It's probably set to none by default if you made your own. If you're using the one I already gave you, this should already be set up. If I open this up, I can change the frequency of the shake. So right now, the position of the camera is not shaking, but the rotation is shaking randomly. So it's staying in place. You can see my location amplitude multiplier is set to 0, so it's not moving, but my rotation amplitude is set to 0.2, so it's moving just a few degrees, 0.2 degrees. And the frequency is how many times per second is it changing angles. So these are pretty good settings. If you want to shake faster, like maybe your character is running or like nervous or something, the cameraman's nervous, you can increase the frequency to maybe shaking 5 times per second, which is pretty high. But I'm gonna go back down to 1. And if you want, again, more intensity, like if you want the camera to really move, you can increase the amplitude. But I'm gonna leave it at 0.2 and 1. Now, whenever you're changing something like this, always hit compile and save, and then you can close the window. And here's how you add it to the camera. So I'm gonna click, I'm back in my sequencer, I'm gonna click on my camera actor, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm inside the camera, so lock Cine Camera Actor to selected viewport, and then I'm gonna add a track to the camera right here, camera shake, and here's the camera shake we just created. Notice that sometimes it pops up in a weird place. It depends on where your playhead was, but here's my camera shake. I'm just gonna drag this onto the timeline. You can see it's actually working. Make sure it fills the whole timeline. And now when I press play, we get some organic camera shake action. Cool, very cool. Let's change a couple of those settings and see how it changes the shot. So if I open up my camera shake again, I'm gonna make it really crazy. Let's go camera rotation 0.5, which is pretty high. And let's do it two times per second. So it's gonna shake twice as fast. I'll hit compile, save, and we'll press play. Now it looks like a really bad cameraman. Just to review, I'm just gonna set up this render again. So I'm gonna go to Window, Cinematics, Movie Render Queue. Here's shot 7, I already rendered that, so I can trash it. And let's add shot 8. Notice that my preset is already there, and it's gonna render to the same folder, but it's gonna be named something different, so it won't override it. I'll press accept, render local. All right, so that's it. Pretty easy, right? Let's just check it out in After Effects really quick. So I'm gonna go to After Effects, just import my shots. Go ahead and grab shot 7, that's the one we did. And I'm also gonna grab shot 8. So let's just make a new sequence for this and check it out. Pretty cool, there it is playing at full speed. And we all have that cool depth of field effect we were working on. And that's how you render out quick cinematics in Unreal Engine. So if you have any other ideas for Unreal Engine that you want to learn about, let us know. If you create anything cool with this scene that I've shared with you guys, definitely tag us in it, we want to see it, and make it awesome.